Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Assembly Judiciary. And, welcome to Assembly Judiciary, everyone here in Carson City, as well as I don't see anyone in Las Vegas, but we may have people watching online through Nellis or our legislative YouTube station. So with that, Committee Secretary, please take the roll.
Assembly members Cole, Dahlia, Gonzalez, Gray, Hanson, Hardy, LaRue Hatch, Marzola, Moore, Nadeem, Orentlicker, Roth, Urick, Chair Miller.
Here. And with that, just a few reminders. Please, everyone, please make sure that you turn down your electronic devices. Also, we will have begin today with our work session. Then we will have a bill hearing. I ask that anyone making public comment or testifying today, please make sure that you state your name and spell it the first time you speak so that we have it correct for the record. Also, that anyone making public comment or testifying on a bill, keep their comments to 2 minutes each. I will provide the meeting ID number right now. It's also available on the agenda that you can locate on Nellis. The phone number is 888-475-4499. And the meeting ID today is 896-395-27191. And with that, also, just to let everyone know that we, you may see members coming and going from the dais. That's just a result of them having to go possibly do their own bill presentations in other committees, as well as, I know you know the routine by now, you see us working on all kinds of different devices. That's just everyone doing research and such. So with that, we will go ahead and begin our work session. I will let everyone know that we are not processing AB4. So we will begin with Assembly Bill 15, and with that, I will turn it over to our policy analyst.
Thank you, Chair Miller. For the record, Cesar Malgrejo, Committee Policy Analyst, and I would note this nonpartisan staff of the LCB. I can neither support nor oppose any of the measures that come before this committee. Assembly Bill 15 is sponsored by this committee on behalf of the Attorney General, and it makes certain changes concerning to Medicaid fraud. And Chair Miller, there are no amendments to this measure.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? Not seeing any. I will entertain a motion to do pass.
So moved.
I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a second from Assemblymember Nadeem. With that, any additional comments or questions? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so could you please raise your hand if you're a nay? I have Assemblymember Gray, Assemblymember Urick, and Assemblymember Hanson. Okay, with that, the motion passes. Thank you, members. I will assign that floor statement to Assemblymember Nadeem. You're welcome. Next bill, please.
Thank you, Chair Miller. For the record, Cesar Malgrejo, Committee Policy Analyst. Our next bill is Assembly Bill 17, which is sponsored by this committee on behalf of the State Controller. Assembly Bill 17 replaces the State Controller with the Division of Human Resource Management of the Department of Administration for purposes of serving a writ of garnishment where the garnishee named is the State of Nevada, and there are no amendments to this measure.
Members, any questions? Not seeing any, I will entertain a motion to do pass.
So moved.
I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Do I have a second? I have a second from Assemblymember Gray. Any additional questions or comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, the motion passes unanimously, and I will assign that floor statement to Assemblymember Hanson. You're welcome. Next.
Thank you, Chair Miller. For the record, Cesar Malgrejo, Committee Policy Analyst. Next bill is Assembly Bill 18, which is sponsored by this committee on behalf of the Supreme Court. Assembly Bill 18 replaces the requirement for an image of a signature on electronically filed court documents with an electronic signature to align with Nevada electronic filing and conversion rules, and there are no amendments for this measure.
Thank you. Members, any questions or comments? Not seeing any, I will entertain a motion to do pass. I have a motion by Vice Chair Marzola. Do I have a second? A second by Assemblymember Gray. Members, any questions or comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? And the motion passes unanimously. I will go ahead and assign that floor statement to Assemblymember Cole. You're welcome. Next, please.
Thank you, Chair Miller. For the record, Cesar Margarejo, Committee Policy Analyst. Next bill is Assembly Bill 30. This bill is sponsored by this committee on behalf of the Division of Public and Behavioral Health of the Department of Human Services. This bill revises provisions relating to records of defendants who have been found incompetent, and there are no amendments for this measure.
Thank you. Any questions? Not seeing any. I will entertain a motion to do pass. Thank you. I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Do I have a second? I have a second from Assemblymember Gonzalez. Any additional questions? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? And the motion passes unanimously. I will assign this floor statement to Assemblymember Delia. You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair Miller. For the record, Cesar Margarejo, Committee Policy Analyst. Next bill is Assembly Bill 89, which imposes certain requirements relating to unclothed searches of children at certain juvenile justice facilities. Sponsored by this committee on behalf of the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Judiciary, and there are no amendments for this measure.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? Not seeing any, I will entertain a motion to do pass. I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Do I have a second? I have a second from Assemblymember Gonzalez. Any additional questions or concerns? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Nay. Okay, can I see the hands of the nays? Okay, I have a nay from Assemblymember Urick, Hanson, Cole, Gray, and Hardy. Thank you so much. With that, the measure passes, and I will assign that floor statement to Assemblymember Gonzalez. You're welcome. Next, please.
Thank you, Chair Miller. For the record, Cesar Margarejo, Committee Policy Analyst. The next bill is Assembly Bill 90, which is sponsored by this committee on behalf of the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Judiciary. And this bill revises provisions relating to juvenile justice, and there are no amendments to this measure.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Not seeing any, I will entertain a motion to do pass. I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Do I have a second? I have a second from Assemblymember Gonzalez. Any additional questions or comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Nay. Okay, yes, hands up, please, if you're nay. I have Assemblymember Hardy, Gray, Cole, Urick, and Hanson. Thank you so much. With that, the measure passes, and I will sign this floor statement to Assemblymember LaRue Hatch.
Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Next, please.
Thank you, Chair Miller. For the record, Cesar Margarejo, Committee Policy Analyst. Next bill is Assembly Bill 216, which is sponsored by Assemblymember Hardy, and which revises provisions relating to domestic violence. And there is an amendment that was submitted by Assemblymember Hardy, which proposes to amend to require law enforcement agencies rather than Director of DPS to prescribe lethality assessment forms, modifying terminology to potentially high-risk lethal situations, and eliminating DPS and court training obligations. Additional amendments include submitting assessment results to district attorneys and removing requirements for submission to DPS. And that's all the amendments.
Thank you. Members, any questions or not seeing any, I will entertain a motion to amend it to do pass. I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Do I have a second? I have a second from Assemblymember LaRue Hatch. Members, any additional questions or comments? Yes, Assemblymember Roth.
Thank you so much. Sorry, thank you, Chair. This body has done a great amount of work regarding our bail factors and making evidence-based decisions regarding our risk assessments. Unfortunately, this bill requires mandatory risk assessments and factors to be considered, so I will be a no today. But if that section is removed, I will be a yes.
Thank you so much. Members, any additional questions or comments? Okay, with that, I will entertain a motion to amend it to pass. I I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Oh, wait, we did this already, right? Okay, so we're going to go ahead. Did we vote yet? All right, let's vote. Let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, so I have one nay, Assemblymember Roth. And with that, I will go ahead, the motion passes, and I will go ahead and assign that floor statement to Assemblymember Hardy. You're welcome. Next, please.
Thank you, Chair Miller. For the record, Cesar Magrejo, Committee Policy Analyst. Our next bill is Assembly Bill 227, or 227, which revises provisions governing adoption and is sponsored by Assemblymember Miller. There is an amendment that was submitted by Kimberly Surratt, which proposes to revise various sections of the bill to more closely track the language proposed in the conceptual amendment. And Chair Miller, that's all the amendments.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions or comments? Not seeing any. I will entertain a motion to amend and do pass. Motion. Okay, I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola and a second from Assemblymember Hanson. Any additional questions or concerns? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, and the motion passes unanimously. I will go ahead and take that floor statement myself. Next bill, please.
Thank you, Chair Miller. For the record, Cesar Margarejo, Committee Policy Analyst. Our next bill is Assembly Bill 283, which is sponsored by Assemblymember Carter. This bill repeals, reenacts, or reorganizes and revises the procedure for summary eviction of certain tenants who are guilty of unlawful detainer, and there are no amendments to this measure.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions or comments? Not seeing any. I will entertain a motion to do pass. I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Do I have a second? Second. A second from Assemblymember Gonzalez. Members, any additional questions or comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Nay. Okay, so I have the nays would be Assemblymember Hardy, Gray, Cole, Urick, and Hanson. Thank you. With that, the motion passes, and I will assign that floor statement to Assemblymember Carter. Next, please.
Thank you, Chair Miller. For the record, Cesar Magrejo, Committee Policy Analyst. Our next bill is Assembly Bill 308, which is sponsored by Assemblymember Backus, and this bill revises provisions relating to cannabis establishment agents, and there are no amendments to this measure.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Not seeing any, I will entertain a motion to do pass. So moved. Thank you. I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Do I have a second? I have a second from Assemblymember Cole. With that, all those in, any additional comments or questions? With that, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you, and the motion passes unanimously. I will go ahead and assign that floor statement to Assemblymember Backus.
Thank you, Chair Miller. For the record, Cesar Margarejo, Committee Policy Analyst. The next bill is Assembly Bill 344, which revises provisions relating to the Judiciary, sponsored by Assemblymember Marzola. And there is an amendment submitted by Assemblymember Marzola, which proposes to ensure all parties are heard before decisions on transferring child welfare proceedings, adds factors for courts to consider in such transfers, narrows the scope of required appointed counsel for indigent parents to protective custody hearings, requires appointed attorneys for most child welfare proceedings unless good cause is shown, and authorizes courts to appoint attorneys for indigent parents in the child's best interest. Chair Miller, that's all the amendments.
Thank you. With that, members, any questions? Not seeing any, I will entertain a motion to amend to do pass. So moved. I have a motion from Assemblymember LaRue Hatch. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second from, I'll take a second from Assemblymember Delia. Any additional questions or comments? Not seeing any, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? And the motion passes unanimously. I will assign that floor statement to Vice Chair Marzola.
Thank you, Chair Miller. For the record, Cesar Magrejo, Committee Policy Analyst. Our next bill is Assembly Bill 369, which revises provisions governing certain orders of protection against domestic violence. And this bill is sponsored by Assemblymember Backus, and there are no amendments for this measure.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Not seeing any, I will entertain a motion. I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Do I have a second? I have a second from I'll take the second from Assemblymember Hardy. With that, any additional questions or comments? Assemblymember Yurick?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I really like this bill, and in the hearing, I recall law enforcement officials raising just a concern about service, and there was an issue that I understand the bill sponsor was working with them on. I don't see any amendment that is addressing that concern here. I will vote it out of committee in the hopes that she will be working on that, and then I can remain a yes on the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And again, just please reach out to Assemblymember Backus. Thanks so much. Any additional questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, and the motion passes unanimously. I will assign that floor statement to Assemblymember Backus. Next, please.
Thank you, Chair Miller. For the record, Cesar Margarejo, Committee Policy Analyst. Our next bill is Assembly Bill 467, which is sponsored by Assembly Members Roth and Yeager. And this bill revises provisions relating to forensic mental health. And Assemblymember Roth did submit an amendment which proposes to delete provisions on involuntary court-ordered mental health facility admissions, authorize contracts for treating incompetent defendants in jails with sheriff consent, reinstate existing laws on the custody and treatment of incompetent defendants, refine terminology for competency treatment, and allow continued mental health service for defendants restored to competency. And that's all the amendments.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Not seeing any, I will entertain a motion to amend and do pass. I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola and a second from Assemblymember Cole. Members, any additional questions or comments? Not seeing any, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? And the motion passes unanimously. I will assign this floor statement to Assemblymember Roth. You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair Miller. For the record, Cesar Margarejo, Committee Policy Analyst. Our next and final bill for this work session is Assembly Bill 490, which is sponsored by this committee. And this bill expands jurisdiction conferred by statute to the First Judicial District Court, allowing certain proceedings and causes of action to be brought in any qualified judicial district, and there are no amendments for this measure.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Not seeing any, I will entertain a motion. I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Do I have a second? I have a second from Assemblymember Gonzalez. Members, any additional questions or comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Nay. Okay, and I have a nay from Assemblymember Gray and Assemblymember Hanson. Thank you. With that, the motion passes, and I will sign this floor statement to Assemblymember Moore. Thank you, members. That's the end of our work session for today. But as everyone knows, we will have more work sessions the next 2 days as well. With that, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is our bill hearing. We have one bill today. It is Assembly Bill 451. It establishes provisions for voluntarily placing temporary restrictions on the possession, custody, control, purchase, or acquisition of firearms. So we are going to give the majority leader and assembly member a few moments to get settled. Is there anyone co-presenting anywhere else? Okay, so.
I believe we have 2 people on Zoom, Chair.
Okay, so we'll give everyone a few moments to get settled. And of course, you two know the routine to introduce yourselves and your co-producers and spell your names. And whenever you are ready, you may proceed.
Good morning, Chair Miller and members of the Assembly Committee on Judiciary. I am Sandra Haudegi, representing Assembly District 41, and I'm honored to co-present Assembly Bill 451 with my colleague, Assembly Member O'Neill. This bill addresses the critical issue of suicide prevention by facilitating voluntary and temporary firearm storage agreements while providing civil liability protections for licensed firearm dealers and law enforcement agencies who voluntarily participate in these efforts. Suicide is a public health crisis that affects families and communities across Nevada. According to the Office of Suicide Prevention, Nevada has historically ranked among the states with the highest suicide rates, particularly among seniors and veterans. Firearms are involved in a significant majority of these suicides, highlighting the need for strategies that create time and space between individuals in crisis and lethal means. Assembly Bill 451 is designed to encourage voluntary out-of-home firearm storage as a proven method to reduce suicide risks. This bill is modeled after similar legislation in Louisiana and Montana, which have successfully implemented civil liability protections for firearm dealers and entities offering temporary firearm storage. Both measures passed with strong bipartisan support. In fact, the Louisiana measure passed unanimously out of the House with 94 yeas and 0 nays, and passed unanimously out of the Senate with 34 yeas and 0 nays. By establishing clear guidelines and protections, Assembly Bill 451 aims to expand access to safe storage options across Nevada. Before I turn it over to my co-presenter, Assemblymember PK O'Neill, I do want to go over some quick stats with the committee that our lovely LCB research team was able to pull for us. So in 2023, the National Veteran Suicide Prevention Annual Report said there was 6,392 veterans who died by suicide, and 72% of them used firearms. In Montana, again, Senate Bill 423 passed during the 2023 legislative session, which mirrors language closely to what we're presenting in Assembly Bill 451. And again, Louisiana House Bill 260 passed in 2022, unanimously, again, with similar language to what you have before you in Assembly Bill 451. And here's some quick data on temporary storage that we received from the Armory Project, who you will hear from today. But since the Armory Project started working with Louisiana and Arkansas, and since Louisiana passed their House Bill 260, they have been able to securely store 850 firearms from at least 80 individuals. And in states with similar laws to what we are trying to do here, Utah has had 37 people use their provisions, Virginia has had 53 people, and Washington has had 42 people, and that's just between 2021 to 2024. Louisiana had only 3 firearm retailers participating in temporary storage prior to their law, and once their House Bill 260 was passed, they increased up to 22 retailers participating. Arkansas has 16 firearm retailers participating, and prior to that, they were not willing to participate without any protections. I will now turn it over, Chair, with your permission, to my colleague, Assemblymember O'Neill. And after Assemblymember O'Neill gives remarks and walks the committee through the bill, we do have Dr. Galatru with the Armory Project on Zoom, and also Joe Dibble with the Washoe County Suicide Prevention Alliance, who we'd like to give a few remarks as well.
Thank you, Ms. Howdigi. Oh, excuse me. Chair Miller and members of the Judiciary Assembly Committee. I'm PK O'Neill. I represent Assembly District 40. I want to give you a little background and context before we actually walk through the language of the bill being presented. It is drastically different than the original bill, as you will see, and I want to stress a couple things. This whole program is purely voluntary on everybody's parts, both the FFLers, the firearm dealers, law enforcement, and those individuals. So, and also I've got to say, I'll make you bet, nobody ever thought that Ms. Howdigi and I would be at the table together talking on a bill, and that's how important I want to stress this bill is. On suicide. It's a serious issue that we are facing, and we are looking for just another solution to assist in mental health conditions we have in our state. And it's a proven, tested program in other states. So with that said, I will, Chair, with your permission, I'll walk through the proposed amendment that we have, and everybody should have it in front of them. Section 1 establishes civil liability protections for licensed firearm dealers and local law enforcement agencies that enter into a voluntary firearm hold agreement with firearm owners. Under this agreement, the firearm dealer or law enforcement agency takes physical possession of a lawfully owned firearm at the owner's request. The firearm is held for an agreed period of not less than 21 days, and the firearm is returned to the owner according to the terms of the agreement. Licensed firearm dealers or law enforcement agencies are immune from civil liability for any act or omission arising from these agreements, including injuries or death that occur after the return of a firearm. However, immunity does not apply in cases involving, it says negligence. We're going to discuss that and go to gross negligence, but going on reckless or unlawful conduct, or if the entire entity knew that the owner had previously demonstrated behavior indicating they might unlawfully use a firearm or cause harm. Section 1 also defines terms such as firearm hold agreement, licensed firearm dealer, and local law enforcement agency to ensure clarity in the implementation. That's the bill, start to finish predominantly. I would just like to say in conclusion, though, a couple statements that I'll hold off until actually we get the Armory project and move along. Thank you, Chair, for the time.
Thank you, Chair. And before we turn it over to Dr. Gail True, I do want to let the committee know that the most recent amendment that was sent yesterday afternoon is a complete gut and replace of the original bill. So we are working off the amendment. And there will be one more amendment coming on behalf of Assemblymember O'Neill and I that does change negligence to gross negligence.
And Majority Leader, if I'm correct, this amendment replaces the original amendment as well.
Correct. Thank you, Chair. I would now like to turn it over to Dr. Gail True with the Armory Project.
Hi, my name is Gala True, Gala is my first name. Last name is True, True. And I'm honored to be able to talk to you about the Armory Project in Louisiana and how a similar bill to the proposed bill helped us to add additional firearm retailers to our network. So the Armory Project was developed by firearm owners for firearm owners who felt comfortable with the idea of temporarily and voluntarily storing firearms outside the home, especially when someone in the home was experiencing a mental health challenge or suicidal crisis. And these individuals expressed that they were most comfortable with the idea of storing firearms with someone like a firearm retailer who they trusted to be able to take care of their firearms and to store them and then to give them back to the person when the person was ready. But when we tried to start a project like this in Louisiana, we heard from firearm retailers and others that there was a great deal of concern that they might be sued. They might be open to a lawsuit even if they weren't sued, that even the threat of a lawsuit could harm their business. And that even though they wanted to do the right thing, they were concerned about the possibility of being sued and possibly losing their family business. So what we really wanted to do in Louisiana was pass what we think of as a Good Samaritan law, where a firearm retailer, or in your case in Nevada, law enforcement, is immune from civil liability, provided that they follow the law when returning the firearms to the individual who has stored them. And once that law was passed in Louisiana, we went from having 3 retailers who were willing to be part of the Armory Project network to having over 20 and counting. So there's research that shows, there's a paper that came out that said that when firearm retailers across the country were asked if they would be willing to provide temporary voluntary storage to a person in need, they said that many firearm retailers would like to help with that, but their main concern was about civil liability. So what we've seen in Louisiana and Arkansas and other states is that when that concern is addressed, that it removes the major barrier to firearm retailers and others providing this service. And we have seen that the service is used and that it saves lives. And people are able to get their firearms back when they're ready to. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the Armory project or how the law has impacted our ability to onboard firearm retailers. I'm here to stay throughout the hearing and answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. True. And Chair, our last co-presenter is Joe Dibble with the Washoe County Suicide Prevention Alliance.
Thank you, Chair Miller and committee members for hearing this bill and supporting it as amended. The Washoe Suicide Prevention Alliance and myself, we have been working on this project for a couple years to mirror gun shop projects that are similar across the country, including the Armory project in Louisiana. What we found when we looked at gun violence and when we looked at gun violence deaths was that in most cases, 2 out of every 3 deaths associated with the firearm was actually a suicide and not a homicide. And this was very alarming to us when we looked at this information. In addition, we found that in over 90% of cases when a firearm was used for a suicide attempt, it was lethal. So these projects like this can certainly save lives. The impact of suicide is tremendous, both in our state and our communities. It's rare that we encounter someone who doesn't have a connection with suicide now. And we decided to work hand in hand with firearm owners and firearm retailers to help pose some solutions and create some community-based options and infrastructure that would allow someone to retain their firearm rights and their rights to own a firearm and still create some time and space between them and the firearm. So we have a network now, a small network. We have 4 firearm dealers now, and we're hoping to expand that significantly. Again, the most common concern that we hear from firearm retailers is liability. We don't want to place too much burden on them. They're not suicide prevention experts, but they have a great resource, many of them, and be trusted and are experts in their field as far as firearm in general. So we look forward to the potential positive impacts of this bill as amended, and appreciate, again, you hearing this bill today and supporting it.
Thank you, Chair Miller. And before we go to questions, it takes a lot of courage for someone to recognize that they are in crisis, that they are in a mental health crisis, and that they could be a threat to themselves. And so what Member O'Neill and I were simply trying to do was just open the resources available to them so that if they recognize that they are in crisis, what can they do to keep themselves safe? And I'm really proud to be here at the table with my colleague to present Assembly Bill 451. And with that, we are now open to questions.
Thank you so much, members, for bringing this forward. We know we have so much to do to help our Nevadans with their struggles, especially our veterans. And I personally have veteran friends, and I appreciate that there's a legal, solid, protective way to do this. But a few years ago, one veteran was in crisis, knew he was in crisis, and told his other friend, who is a veteran, both friends of mine, to come over and get everything. And so that other veteran went over, got all of his firearms, and kept them for over a year, actually. Now, thankfully, the first veteran is alive and well and, went and got the help and everything he needed. But again, for the other veteran who took over, he knew he was working outside of the law. He knew the concerns for himself and all of the challenges that came with that. But of course, he was going to do anything to save a fellow veteran. So I really appreciate that you are bringing something forward to protect everyone involved in these kinds of scenarios. With that, we do have some questions. So we will start. Our first question will be from Assemblymember Orlicker.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing this bill. I'm very glad to see it. My question is, if at the end of the hold period, the gun owner doesn't come to claim it, does the holder have an obligation to search them out, or does this just get treated as unclaimed property under unclaimed property laws? What happens?
Thank you for the question, Assemblymember Sandra Howdigi. For the record, I am going to ask Dr. True to kind of walk through how FFLers in Louisiana have handled this, but it's a minimum of 21 days. What Assemblymember O'Neill and I have learned is that sometimes storage takes more than a year. Sometimes they store it for up to 2 years. We also spoke to a veteran in Washington who shared a story how another veteran surrendered their firearms for up to 2 years. So the 21-day is just a minimum. They cannot return them, but they can store them for periods way longer than 21 days. But Dr. True, could you talk to how FFLers in Louisiana have handled this situation?
Sure. So with the Armory project, we created a storage agreement template that's available on our website for download. Any FFL can download it and adapt it. It's a Word document. They can adapt it as a way to talk through with the firearm owner what the firearm storage agreement looks like. So, for example, in Louisiana and Arkansas, where the Armory project is, the FFL will ask the firearm owner for their contact information, and they'll ask them if they're willing to share an alternative contact, like a family member or friend that they could contact if, for example, the original owner's contact information doesn't work anymore, they can't reach them. And so they'll make every effort to contact the original owner and the secondary contact to say, hey, you've still got firearms here. It's been a year. Do you want them back, or what should I do with them? We haven't had a situation yet where where a firearm retailer wasn't able to get their firearms back to the person. The person could also designate someone else to come and get the firearms for them, but that person will have to pass a background check. In Louisiana or Arkansas, I'm not sure what the laws are in Nevada, but I would imagine they'd have to pass a background check at least in order to get firearms that were not originally belonging to them. And but it's really something that's worked out between the FFL and the firearm owner, and they figure out, how they'll dispose of the firearms if the person doesn't come back for them. So we had one case in Louisiana where a firearm owner decided they didn't want their firearms back. And so they said to the retailer, would you put them up for consignment for me and sell them for me, and then, give me whatever money comes from that. So it's really between the FFL and the individual firearm owner, and it's better if they talk about it ahead of time, what to expect from each other.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Gray.
Thank you. Good morning. Actually, a bill I actually like. The first question, and we'll come back to the others later if there's time. Do we know, and statistically, I want to see this proven out because so many gun laws are not proven out, but do we know if anybody had committed suicide during the period where they've surrendered the weapons or after receiving their weapons back? I'm hoping the number is 0, but...
Dr. True.
Would you like me to try to answer that?
Yes, Dr. True, thank you.
Sure. I will say this is a fairly new sort of program that we have in Louisiana and Arkansas, and there are programs like this in Colorado, I think Washington State, Montana. So I'm not sure anyone has the exact data that you're talking about, but I will say that anecdotally in Louisiana and Arkansas, we have mainly seen people who stored their firearms, got help that they needed, were able to address the issues they were dealing with, and then were able to get their firearms back. And to our knowledge, no one died by suicide by firearm after picking up their firearms. In terms of whether someone would die by suicide during the period when they're storing their firearms at the retailer, there is some data to show that most people will not go to what's called means substitution. So if a person is thinking about suicide and they've decided that they're going to use a firearm and they don't have access to firearms, the research shows that people will not revert to another method. So someone, I can't speak to exactly what's happened in Louisiana and Arkansas, but I can say that we know that if people don't have access to a loaded firearm, they're more likely to go get the help that they need and not die by suicide while their firearms are out of the house. So I hope that answers your question, but I'm happy to try to address it better if that didn't.
Thank you. That was good.
Thank you. And I have a follow-up question to that. And again, this is just me. I shouldn't say necessarily anecdotally, but doctor, this question is for you. And I think this is the important part of the immunity. Would you agree that there are individuals outside of, we know there's trauma and PTSD, which brings on situational crisis for veterans, as well as all of us have faced situational crisis, situational temporary depressions, the ups and downs of life. That this would be successful for those individuals or for all of us as we go through ups and downs that are temporary, as opposed to people who have clinical diagnosis and struggles they struggle with all their lives. That, I think of like Robin Williams, and as shocked as we all were, but then as we find out later, he had struggled and struggled his entire life. So the immunity would really protect, because there's no way for anyone to know. There's no doctor or psychiatrist along with this person. When this person is surrendering their firearms, we don't know if this is temporary or a chemical, a condition that they've been dealing with their entire life. So that's really what the immunity is for. And would you agree? I'll just let you, I think you're following where I'm trying to go with this.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the way that people look at it in Louisiana and Arkansas and Montana is that it's a Good Samaritan law, where a firearm retailer or law enforcement or an individual, as you pointed out, your friend who stored firearms for a friend, is trying to do the best they can to help the person at the time with the best tools they have, and that they should not be held liable or lose their business if they can't predict what the person is going to do when they get their firearms back. I think, as Joe Dibble pointed out, even a licensed mental health provider can't always predict what a person is going to do. And so this merely says if you're trying to do something to help another person, you shouldn't lose your business or be held liable if you can't predict what they're going to do when they get their firearms back. I think the other point I'd love to make is that I think it's so important that Joe Dibble and others of his colleagues are working in this area, because one of the things that happens with the Armory Project is that the firearm retailers a list of resources, mental health resources in their community, both for veterans and for civilians, that they can share with people who come to them to store their firearms, so that that person can get help for themselves and get access to the services they need. And so it's really a way to sort of get the message out that it's okay if you're struggling with any issue, whether it's a mental health issue, a chronic physical health issue, or financial issues, or relationship issues, or justice involvement, or anything like that. As a firearm owner, it's okay to reach out for help, and there is help out there in your community. And so these law enforcement agencies and firearm retailers and others who are promoting a program like this can be trusted messengers, saying, not only will I store your firearms for you, but also there's no stigma in you getting help, and here's a list of resources. So I think Joe's involvement in this is really key, and hopefully that answers what you're asking.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. Our next question is from Assembly Member Cole.
There we go. Good morning. Thank you for bringing this. I think it's a really, really important piece of legislation. I would love to be amended on if that's something that you're amenable to. So as a transactional attorney, I'm looking at this as a contract, really. And there's some language in here that I think could be tightened up to make it workable and for the people who are involved in this, if something were to happen, would actually be enforceable. So I would be happy to sit down and talk to you about a whole bunch of different things, but there's a couple. When we talk about an action arising from a firearm hold agreement, I think the actions you're talking about are not actually arising from the agreement itself. It's arising after somebody has gotten their guns back. So it's different than the agreement. And then in subsection 3A1, where we're talking about taking physical possession of the owner's lawfully possessed firearm, does that create a duty for the person to investigate as to whether or not that firearm is lawfully owned? if not, then you would probably want to put that in there as well. But yeah, I would love to have more conversation with you about the bill. So, guess not really a question, but just statements on concerns. Thank you.
Assemblyman O'Neill, or Assemblyperson O'Neill. It's really early still to me, and I was up very late last night, Chair. I apologize to you and the committee members. I appreciate that, and as I stated earlier, there's still some discussion we're having. So I will take that into consideration, and I appreciate your offer to be amended on, and we'll get back with you shortly, because we only have a short period of time.
We have like 48 hours, remember what? We have plenty of time. Okay, thank you for that. Our next question is from Assemblymember Hardy.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for being here today. I was just wondering how you decided, as far as the agreement itself, that it could be written or oral. I would think there would be more security or protections if it was written.
Dr. True, before I answer, would you like to respond, or can I go straight into my response?
You go ahead.
Assemblymember O'Neill, for the record. Assemblymember Hardy, I appreciate the question, and the reason why is, let's get, as originally stated, this is a voluntary action. Some people will have concerns by coming in and doing a written agreement, is what happens to that agreement later? Who else has access to it? We're trying to keep this, the situation of mental health, particularly suicide, can be very personal to an individual, and they may not want that to have even the remote possibility of it getting out to other individuals. And I'll use us as an example, us as legislators. Think about if a person was running, if we have, during the interim period or so, some of our own mental health issues, and take advantage of this, and our opposition come election time somehow is able to gain the information, would it influence the outcome of the election? Or even a person within their job site, they've addressed the issues, it's behind them, they are now an active working member of their community. Do you want this historical incident to come forward? So that's why I say it's an either or. As Dr. True said, they have a pony or a draft of an agreement that can be worked out. So it's there as the option for it, and that's what we're trying to keep, is options available, and try to make this as promotive and available to both sides, protect the receiver and those that are in the situation. Does that answer for you?
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Gonzalez.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for this presentation. I really appreciate it. My question was on the amendment under, I think it's page 2B, and then that third line there, where it says, the licensed firearm dealer or local law enforcement agency knew at the time the person who sought to retrieve the firearm from a holder demonstrated behavior. And number 3 was prohibited by law from possessing it, I'm assuming, because there's an A there. Can you just talk about what that means, or what the intent of that portion is? Thank you.
Yes, that's just simply for someone who maybe during the time that they were in a hold agreement committed a felony. That would be someone who's not legally allowed to possess a firearm. So if that dealer knew, then they would not be allowed to return it.
Thank you. So how would the dealer know, or are there situations where the dealer would have that information?
No, that's just if they're if they'd have to prove that they knew, right? That's why we're changing it to gross negligence. There would be one example, right? If someone committed a felony and it was on the news and it was the gentleman, right? And who you knew was coming in to pick up the firearm. So they would have to prove knowledge, but it's to keep firearms out of the hands of prohibited people. Oh,
And if I may add, Chair, please, it's a very good question, Assemblymember Gonzalez. And just to expound upon that, it could even be as obvious as the person comes in saying, hey, I want my firearms back. I've had enough of this world. I'm fed up. And it's expressed these strong, I'm going to go down and solve my whole problem. I'm going to go and kill myself. Give me my firearms back. Those overt acts, that is obvious to the person. Naturally, the FFL or the law enforcement agency can't read the minds, as Dr. True said, and as been expressed. You can't read in to what the person is thinking, but it's what they're physically displaying to the average individual. I think it would be the best solution to that.
So much. Thank you. So in that example, would the retailer give that person that gun if they were saying those things?
No. Assemblymember O'Neill, no, because they're displaying, it says, would engage, that they're demonstrating behavior. That's a demonstration of their behavior. So you would not.
Assemblymember Sandra Howdiggy too. And if they did return firearms to anyone who was displaying 1, 2, or 3, then it nulls the immunity.
Thank you. And I have a follow-up to that, and another member may as well, because that was one of the questions I think a few of us had about the ability to, if someone comes in and for the retailer to be able to say no. Now, Assemblymember, you gave a great example of someone specifically saying, I'm going to do this, and there's no question. Let's flip this scenario around to someone comes in, they don't say it, but they clearly seem that they are in a crisis, an episode, they don't seem well. Do I have the ability to refuse? Okay.
Assemblymember O'Neill, for the record. Chair, it's actually a difficult question to answer, and if you don't mind, as most people know, I spent years in law enforcement, a few of them in uniform, and I'm going to talk about a personal experience that I had, if I may. Give me a minute at this, because in some ways I take it personally that it was a failure of myself, and have talked to people about it. But I got a call one day to an area in Miami, Bayfront Park, at the Veterans Memorial Center, and that a gentleman was there talking about committing suicide. And I went in and met with him. I was in uniform, introduced myself, and we sat down and talked. Actually, I don't drink coffee, but I bought him some coffee. I grabbed myself a cup of coffee and looked like I was drinking it the best I could. But we talked for about 40 minutes about things that were bothering him. And this was shortly after Vietnam was just winding down. I mean, literally just winding down. And we went through a lot of what he had experienced and things that I had experienced, and found mutual ground, and talked about the beauty, though, of life in general, of family in general. And just the view we had of Biscayne Bay from this location. And changed his conversation with me to much more receptive. And I finally said, so why don't we go down to the VA hospital and actually talk to some professionals and get you the help. Go with your brothers. Let's get together with your brothers and talk about this and really carry it forward. And he said, yeah, that sounds great. I want to do that. He says, so we were walking out to my unit. And he says, just let me use the head for a moment before we go, because we were about 30 minutes out. And I said, yeah, no problem. No sooner had that door closed into the restroom than the gunshot went off. I failed. What I'm getting at is I couldn't read his mind. Either he played me well, and I did the best I could, but getting back to your question about the dealer, that dealer, I don't think, and I'd like to say I was trained, spent 6 months in the academy, then a year before I was allowed to ride by myself. So I think I'd had exposure to similar incidences. I was trained. I knew what I had to do, but I couldn't read the mind. The person was apparently, for lack of a better term, as people have told me, he was set. He wanted to commit suicide. There was nothing you could do. Whether that's true or not, I'll accept it. But that's what I'm getting to, is why we want to have this as a voluntary. We cannot expect superhuman powers of that FFL or even that law enforcement agency. And that's why we want to give them the protection to have this available to them, to take the weapons when the individual comes back and is asking for them back, is not demonstrating, not displaying any overt activities, or has not been in the news for committing crimes the day before, so that you can't do any better than what any of us would do. And we can't be held responsible for those actions. And hopefully that answers your question. The big part that I'm trying to get to, Chair, is don't expect superhuman powers from the FFLers, and we want to give them the protection in that. Thank you, and I apologize for some of my emotion.
Assembly member, there is no apology. First of all, you did not fail, and I hope you can release yourself of that responsibility that you've endured. And if anything, you provided him with 40 minutes of pleasantries, so those were the last moments for him, pleasant conversations about life. But please release yourself of that. I know. Today may be part of that. A little bit. Vietnam in itself, and that's all I have to say. With that, we'll move on to Assembly Member LaRue Hatch.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing what I think is an incredibly important bill for our community members. My question is simply, once this is passed into law, how will we make sure that people are aware that this is going on? Will there be this model contract, will that be sent out to firearms dealers? Will there be public information campaigns?
Thank you for the question. I think that's where we are going to lean heavy on the Armory project. Dr. True, could you speak to the resources that you have available and how you've got the word out? And it's my understanding, I read through an extensive PowerPoint that the Armory project had put together, and you've trained some over 10,000, right? I don't know if it's individuals or FFLers. Can you talk about the training and the resources that you have for free for FFLers?
So, we work very closely with groups like Joe's to provide support and guidance and templates and standard operating procedures and things like that, so that that groups like Joe's can bring firearm retailers and others on board, can provide training for their staff so they know how to have these conversations and all these great questions today, so that the staff will know how to address those kinds of questions when a firearm owner comes in and wants to learn about the program. In Louisiana, we get the word out in a lot of different ways. There are radio stations that provide free public service announcements. We have firearm retailers who are part of the Armory Project who do, 30-second PSAs on radio stations for free to get the word out. We get the word out to mental health providers in our community, both at the VA in Louisiana and Arkansas, and also community mental health providers. And there's a lot of word of mouth. There's a lot of marketing that goes on. So we have brochures that firearm retailers display and posters in their stores. And all of that is free for download from our website if Joe and any group in Nevada wants to take those and edit them, for firearm retailers in Nevada. So there's a lot of different ways to get the word out. It definitely is the kind of program that grows slowly but surely. And I think support from the state, as y'all are demonstrating today, is very important for helping to get the word out about a program like this. So we, with the Armory Project, will be there to support Joe and anybody else who wants to work with firearm retailers in Nevada. And there's lots of other resources out there that we can share with Joe and others.
And Chair Miller, if we could also ping Mr. Joe Dibble with the Washoe County Suicide Prevention Alliance so he can speak to his partnership. I know in his presentation he mentioned that he's already partnered with 3 organizations. So, Mr. Dibble, could you speak to how you've gotten the word out?
It's in our alliance. We have, our initiative. We partner with Renowned Regional Medical Center, with Nevada Urban Indians, Inc., the Tribal Intertribal Council, Northern Nevada. We have 2 veteran services agencies on our board, and as well as Northern Nevada Public Health. So we're working in cooperation with all of these agencies who have tremendous reach to reach their audience in our community here in Northern Nevada specifically. Of course, we like to expand that. We also are connected with our firearm retailers now in Northern Nevada specifically, and the local ATF office, which we were able to partner with, and they're agreed to distribute our resources to all firearm retailers. That the encounters that we even were included at their most recent local seminar to distribute our information. And so we have a kind of variety of platforms on how we'll get this information out. We have some marketing that we'll do as well. And then we have presence at local gun shows to distribute the information for free to firearm owners and retailers and recruit them to participate as temporary secure storage locations. I'd like to also point out that we developed a regional map that has these locations for temporary storage for the community that you can see, and that map will grow.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'll go back to member questions. Assemblymember Urick.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you guys for addressing this important issue. And I can see the delicate balance that we're trying to achieve of offering this as a resource for folks in a moment of crisis and to removing that fire. My wife is also a licensed therapist, and research definitely shows if they don't have immediate access to that gun, they are less likely to commit suicide. So I fully appreciate that. And then also understand some of these folks wouldn't want to go to law enforcement, which is why we're extending this to other folks and people. And I appreciate the amendment of gross negligence standard so that we don't deter people from actually wanting to participate in this program. But as I look at subsection 2B, immunity does not apply if they knew, right? And we've elevated it to this new standard. But this demonstrating behavior isn't really well defined, and I'm concerned. I heard the examples before, right? If they come in, and the example you gave, assembly member, was, if they come in and say, I'm going to go shoot somebody or something, that's obvious. And the other questions that I even heard Chair ask and that we're trying to get at and just want to establish a record because it is ambiguous. Folks are going to look to this legislative record to figure out if immunity applies. So I'm looking at other this seems fairly subjective. So we're trying to get clarity on things like if they're specifically saying it or if there's written documentation or there's a news report. But I'm even thinking something like, what if a family member or a friend comes in and says, hey, this person is still in crisis, right? if a family member comes in and makes this allegation, and then the FFL dealer gives the gun back to the individual, let's say a couple hours later, does liability impose upon them then, or are they still entitled to immunity?
Assemblymember York, PK O'Neill, Assemblymember O'Neill for the record. Good question. If a family member or a friend, whoever it may be, we have the blue flag logs where they can go and actually go into a judge and get those restrictions available currently in Nevada, which haven't been really used. I forget how long ago we passed that, but I think it was the 19th session or so. So there's other opportunities, but I'll get back to the FFLer. They would probably most likely tell that family member, that friend, go see the judge, go see and attain the proper mechanism. It's that individual's personal property. It is not my right to deny him. It's a Second Amendment right, and we're not trying to inhibit that at all. I get back to the voluntary part of this, both sides of this proposed legislation. So the FFLer or the law enforcement should and would recommend that they go follow the other legal avenues they have to address the situation. Is what my recommendation would be for it and for the record. Maybe Assemblymember Howdigi?
Yeah, Assemblymember Howdigi, for the record, I think what my colleague was trying to reference was the red flag laws that we passed in 2019 that allow for family members to go file a petition to temporarily have firearms removed, and then they have to prove in front of a judge. So those laws would kick in at that point. But the law as written says that the FFL has to know, right, without gross neglect, they have to know that the person coming to pick up their firearms was demonstrating. I don't think that a verbal warning from a family member demonstrates enough to the FFL or that the person who came in, that they would have to know that that person is demonstrating behavior that they would go harm themselves or others.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Hanson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for being here, and so sorry for the pain that you've both experienced, and those maybe listening or here in the room. Appreciate you trying to get, some help here. But just wanting to vet a few more things. I'm not sure exactly about this process, but one concern is if an FFL is going to hold a gun, doesn't the FFL have to officially log it in the book? And then would that pose a problem? Because I think it would require a background check for the owner to get it back once it's officially in the logbook.
Dr. True, could you speak to how this has worked in Louisiana?
Sure. In Louisiana, the firearm retailer can take the firearms in one of two different ways. If they provide gunsmithing and cleaning and repair services on their site, they can take firearms in through that. And they have to actually provide cleaning and repair and maintenance to the firearms in order to hold on to them. In that case, my understanding is that they do not have to have the original owner pass a background check when they come to pick up their firearms, but they do have to log the firearms into their acquisition and disposition book. I am not a firearm retailer, so we always just say to the FFLs, you need to talk to your local ATF field liaison about how you're doing this and make sure that it complies with all local and state and federal laws. But the main way that firearm retailers in Louisiana are taking firearms in for storage is through a temporary storage agreement, like we talked about. It could be verbal, it doesn't have to be written. And in that case, they have to log the firearms into their acquisition and disposition book. and it becomes part of their inventory, they tend to store those firearms for the Armory Project in a separate safe on their property to keep it separate from other firearms in their inventory. And when the person comes to get their firearms back, they do have to pass a background check to get their firearms back. So you're correct about that. And that can be a deterrent for some individuals who are concerned about having to pass another background check to get their own firearms back. So that could potentially be a deterrent, but that's in compliance with the law. So that's the way it has to be done.
And Chair, if I may add, Assemblyman O'Neill for the record. Assemblymember Hanson, the other program we're looking at is actually forming, if some nonprofits had gone forward, there's a business down in Las Vegas which has spoken about providing separate safes so it does not have to go into the FFLers logbooks. And those would be similar, I see it as similar to what a lot of hotels, motels provide, where they'll have a lockbox in the room, you put in your combination that's unique to you, and allowing the storage that way. They've been donating firearm storage vaults to, or have expressed a desire that they would donate, so the FFLer would not have to go into their record keeping. It stays outside of their procedures, and ATF has said that that would be acceptable to them too, that it would not have to go into any of records. So that's the other way, and that keeps it, again, much more open and available to the individual with the protection for the FFLer.
Thank you for that. I think now we'll return to Assemblymember Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think as most gun owners are, we absolutely try and be responsible. So if I've got a family member or a child especially, I mean, people that tend to come to firearms illegally, can I surrender those at an FFL and not be listed in NICS as a prohibited person, since it's not me that's in crisis?
Assemblymember O'Neill, for the record, I'm not sure if I understand the total question. None of this would take you into NICS as a voluntary storage.
So that was gutted from the bill where it said you'd have to be listed in NICS for a minimum 21 days? Okay.
We're only dealing with what is being presented to you today in this 2.5-page amendment.
Okay. I didn't.
So there is no NICS unless, as was example, you did turn it in. If the FFLer did end up putting it into his logbook, then to retrieve, you would have to do a Brady passage, the NICS passage. But even those records are not maintained. There is no record. NICS does not maintain records of who they've run backgrounds on. And I can say that because the unit that handled Brady checks for the state of Nevada was in my division when I was working for the Department of Public Safety. And that had to be proven to me several times over, including going back to West Virginia and seeing the whole program and understanding it better.
Assemblymember Senator Howdigi, for the record, again, the most recent amendment that was sent yesterday is a complete gut and replace of the original bill.
And I apologize, I've not read that amendment yet. So that actually answers the question. Great, thank you.
Thank you so much. I still have, I would like to say a number of my questions were already answered through conversation or questions from other members or everyone's collective discussion, but I have a few more quick technical questions. One would be, and I appreciate if you don't have these specific answers yet. One would be, as a person choosing to surrender my firearms, is it my choice who I go to? I can either go to law enforcement or to an identified participating retailer.
Assemblymember Sandra Haudegi, you could go to anyone who is voluntarily participating. So this isn't a mandate on law enforcement. You can't go to any law enforcement agency. A law enforcement agency and an FFLer have to elect to participate.
Okay, thank you for that. That answers some other questions. With that then, I see that the amendment says local law enforcement agency. And I know that local often refers to my particular municipality, my city, my county, where I live. It's more geographical. But would this also include state law enforcement if they so choose to participate? Just because we know as people, sometimes we don't think in terms of geographical or municipal jurisdictions. We see the police as the police.
Assemblymember Sandra Haudegi, for the record, I envisioned whatever law enforcement agency wanted to participate, with the understanding that not all law enforcement agencies have the proper storage to store them, and so those who would be willing to participate would be willing. I think, I'm not sure if this is the part of you were getting at, but like if I live in one city and I want to travel to another city where there's a participating law enforcement agency, then I would envision that being allowed, yes.
Yes, thank you so much. So a Nevadan could go to any law enforcement within our state who's participating.
Assemblymember Sandra Haudegi, yes. And again, what Member O'Neill and I tried to do was, make sure we were making it as easy as possible and understanding that, again, sometimes there is some stigma with it, right? Some stigma that comes and people are afraid of people finding out that they were in a mental health crisis. That's why we both agreed to do the oral or written. And that with the same thing, I would envision them like, hey, if they don't want anyone, friends or family, finding out that they are in a mental health crisis, I would envision someone maybe driving to a neighboring city to take advantage of an FFL or in a neighboring city or a law enforcement agency in a neighboring city that would be participating in the program.
Thank you so much. Or we know sometimes some of us live in unincorporated counties but the cities, right, and we just don't, again, law enforcement's law enforcement to many of us. I appreciate that. Thank you. And my next question would be for, I think for Dibbles, actually. Do we have a list yet? And I know when my colleague asked questions about how will this be communicated out, and I think I heard you discuss some of the organizations that are partnering with, but do we have a list? And you don't have to provide it necessarily now, but of firearm dealers that are participating? Because what I want to make sure is that, especially geographically, this is available to Nevadans. I think I heard you say 4. If we have 4 up in Reno, that's great for Reno, but, we have a vast state of people. So where are we with that? Do you know how many dealers are participating? Do you anticipate more will, just like in the other states, once this became law, that more will choose to opt in, and just making sure we have some geographical accessibility?
Joe Dibble for the record. Thank you, Chair Miller. And right now we have a handful of FFLs that are participating as temporary secure storage locations, and a number of others that are participating by distributing our education information with their firearms transactions. The goal certainly would be expansion here, and our efforts have been inclusive of Washoe County, and our partners have been, most of our partners are Washoe County based, but we do have statewide partners and organizations that are working with this at a broader level, and we would like to expand this, especially the secure firearm storage map, that network that we have, which is available to the public, and we hope to expand that statewide.
Thank you so much.
If I could add to that, Chair Miller, Assemblymember Howdiggy for the record, but and one of our slides, and this was information we received from the Armory Project as well, that Louisiana only had 3 firearm retailers participating in voluntary storage prior to House Bill 260 passing, and once House Bill 260 passed, it increased to 22 retailers. So that's what we envision happening here. We have under a handful of retailers participating now, but once, if 451 is approved and passed and signed by the governor, we would imagine more retailers participating throughout the state.
Thank you so much. And I think based on population as well, that Louisiana, we're similar in population and also similar in dynamic of having a few metropolises and, spread out rules, that I think that's a pretty good example. Thank you. All right, with that, I think that does conclude all of my questions. I am ready to open it up for testimony. I am going to take 30 minutes in support, 30 minutes in opposition, and 30 minutes in neutral. With that, again, just reminding people to please make sure that you state your name and spell it for the record, and please try to keep your comments to 2 minutes each. So we will start first up here in Carson City. Anyone wishing to testify in support?
Good morning, Chair Miller. For the record, my name is Joelle Gutman Dodson, JoelleGutman-Dodson, and I am the Government Affairs Liaison for Northern Nevada Public Health. I wanted to thank the bill sponsors for bringing this bill forward. This is something that Joe Dibble with the Washoe County Suicide Alliance has been working on, and we're proud to say that Joe Dibble is a health educator at Northern Nevada Public Health. He runs our injury prevention program. So this is something that's really been a labor of love for him and another individual named Dr. Springmeyer. They have really worked really hard on this throughout Washoe County. And so I just wanted to thank the bill sponsors and Joe Dibble and Dr. True Gala. She's on vacation, so she's doing this on her own time. And I also wanted to say that if we have some concerns with tightening the law, we might look to Louisiana's law, and they have a very simple version of this, and maybe that's what we're looking for. Assemblymember Cole, we can address that. We can look at that. This program works, and I think a lot of FFLs are looking for this liability waiver or, decrease in liability, and maybe we'll see more FFL owners or gun store owners, I'm not sure the correct term, but I think we can see that in Clark County and beyond if this bill passes. So thank you for asking all of these thoughtful questions, and we encourage your support. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Jason Woodard, Nevada Sheriffs and Chiefs Association, JASONWOODARD. The Nevada Sheriffs and Chiefs Associations in support of this bill. We'd like to thank the bill's sponsors for bringing this bill forward. It's very important. They've been great in working with us to make some changes and address our concerns with the bill. As a Marine Corps veteran, as a law enforcement veteran, and as the child survivor of a law enforcement firearms suicide, I've seen firsthand the significance and the impact that these types of suicides can have, both on my family and also on the cultures I've been a part of over the last 30 years. These types of mechanisms help to reduce the stigmatisms associated with firearms and mental crisis. And having more options is better. And I think what you see with this bill is it provides a tremendous amount of options for both the person who's experiencing the crisis and also for the agencies and also for the dealers who participate. And I think that that is the best possible way to have the biggest impact, is to allow people to participate, give everybody the best benefit of the doubt. So we encourage your support of this bill. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Miller, members of the committee. Jason Walker, JASONWALKER, representing the Washington County Sheriff's Office. Thank you to the bill sponsors for bringing this bill forward. Happy to support Assembly Bill 451 as amended. I believe this is a relevant option for persons that feel that they need to separate themselves from firearms for a period of time, as unfortunately most of us know a 1-second decision regarding a firearm could be a life-altering event. So happy to support.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in Carson City that would like to testify in support? Not seeing anyone. Is there anyone there in Las Vegas that would like to testify in support? Also not seeing any. Broadcasting, will you please open the lines?
If you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 451, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 451, please press star 9 now. You may begin.
Good morning, Chair Miller. Good morning, Chair Miller and members of the committee. My name is Jenny Stepp, JENNY STEPP, and I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor in private practice in Las Vegas. I specialize in treating mood and anxiety disorders, trauma, and PTSD. I'm a volunteer with Moms Demand Action, and I'm the Healthcare Action Team Chair for the Nevada chapter of the National Organization for Women. Sadly, I'm also a survivor of gun violence. I want to share my strong support for Assembly Bill 451. As part of my continuing education for licensure, every year I'm required to take a course in suicide prevention. Here are some things I've learned in my training. Limiting access to firearms is one of the most effective strategies for suicide prevention. After firearm access was reduced in Australia, the firearm suicide rate dropped by almost 60%, and there was no significant increase in other methods. Israel restricted soldiers from taking their firearms home on weekends. They saw a 40% reduction in firearm suicides among soldiers. Because of my specialties in mood disorders, trauma, and PTSD, I do work with clients who may suffer from a period of suicidal ideation. I say period because usually these episodes are short, intense periods of suffering that will resolve with the proper mental health care and safety planning. With over 26 years of mental health care, I have never had a client be unwilling to move their firearms to a safe location during the recovery period. In my experience, the majority of people who suffer from suicidal ideation, they're scared and looking for safety, guidance, and supportive resources. Assembly Bill 451 would give people a supportive solution for this problem. It can be challenging to quickly and easily move a person's firearms out of their immediate possession into safekeeping. This bill would give us a mechanism to do so and be a huge relief and support to me in my work as part of the mental health workforce here in Nevada. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Next caller.
Chair, there are no other callers choosing to testify in support at this time.
Thank you. Then I will open it up for testimony in opposition.
Good morning, Chair Miller, members of the committee. My name is Keely Hopkins, and I'm the State Director for the National Rifle Association here today in opposition. We appreciate all the work that the sponsors have put into this bill. It really has come a long way since the initial discussions about this concept and how to provide this option here in Nevada. We do still have some concerns with the language around the liability immunity protections provided to the FFLs. Since this is a voluntary program, we want to make sure that FFLs have adequate protections provided so that they do feel comfortable with participating and with offering this service. We hope to continue discussions with the sponsors to ensure these protections are reflected in the bill language, but again, we do appreciate the work that has been done. Thank you.
Thank you. So then what you're saying, because of the rules of the committee, if you have any concerns or suggestions, you'd have to be in opposition. So you're just saying your opposition is limited to just maybe the possible tweaking to tighten up that language?
Yes, that's correct, Chair Miller. Keely Hopkins for the record. We just want to make sure that the liability immunity protections that have been brought up by a couple of the other members of the committee today, just making sure that language is tight so that it does actually provide the immunity that I believe the sponsors are hoping to achieve for them.
Thank you. May I ask you another question? Because specifically who you're representing, I just want to make sure that everyone's clear. Do you support the idea around the actual theme of the bill? It's just that technical.
Chair Miller, Keely Hopkins for the record. Absolutely, we've been working on suicide prevention efforts in a number of states. I don't believe that we were involved with the TAP project when they passed it in other states. I don't think that we were necessarily supporting or opposing the bill, but we definitely support efforts to prevent suicides here in Nevada.
Thank you so much. And we know Nevada offers an accessibility that other states may not have when it comes to working with legislation and such. So thank you so much for your testimony.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Janine Hansen. We are very supportive of this concept and this idea. We are very thankful that the bill has been significantly changed from the original, and we appreciate it. I also appreciated the wonderful questions asked by the committee and looking into the bill, and we are looking forward to being able to totally support it when some of these small issues are resolved. Thank you.
Thank you, and I will trust that you are still, that you will communicate those concerns to, come on up, Ms. Hansen, that you will communicate, if you haven't already, your technical concerns with the bill sponsors.
Janine Hansen for the record. We really just saw the amendment this morning, and so yes, we will be happy to do that, and we are also working with the NRA on this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And again, often at this time frame in the process, amendments and changes and everything are coming quickly and what feels like last minute because we're up against a deadline. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else here in Carson City that would like to testify in opposition? Not seeing anyone. Is there someone there in Las Vegas that would like to testify in opposition? If so, please proceed.
Good morning, Chair and legislators. My name is Leslie Quinn. I do support efforts against suicide. However, as AB 451 is written, there's no mention of suicide prevention in the bill. Therefore, it reads as an attempt to remove Second Amendment freedoms. How does AB 451 address a family member if they're being vindictive against someone else? Their allegations could cause serious issues for a family member being spoken against. If a person willingly gives up their firearms, who then determines they are now stable to get their weapons back? What if a person reported doesn't give up their firearms willingly? Does law enforcement then force them to relinquish their firearms? AB 451 also creates a confidential database that will track gun owners and their guns. What could possibly go wrong with that? In sections 12, number 3, it says the central repository shall destroy all records related to the inclusion and removal of the person. What about the other databases listed in section 9? The truth is, any database obtained if 451 passes as it is in its current text will never be taken off of all government lists or databases. AB 451 in the current text available online and as a handout here in Las Vegas, Amigo hearing offices reads as more government interference and tracking of our Second Amendment freedoms, not as a suicide prevention bill. I hope that the updated text is available soon so constituents can be better informed of the true intent of AB 451. For these reasons, I oppose AB 451. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, for the record, the bill has been fully amended as addressed at the beginning of the hearing, and that is available as this is also live and being recorded. With that, I don't see anyone else in Las Vegas. Broadcasting, will you open the lines?
If you would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 451, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in opposition, please press star 9 now.
Yeah, Yolanda Kanak, YOLANDAKNAAK. I obviously am looking at Nellis Online, and I don't see anything about any amendment actually. And so, if you really wanted informed people to comment on this bill, I would think that you would put it online. It says 0 where it says amendments. And there's nothing crossed out. So
Ma'am?
I actually
Yes. I understand your concern. It's actually online. It's not under the amendment tab. It's under, if you look under the exhibits tab, it's the last item placed. So I understand it's not under the official amendment tab because it's conceptual right now, but if you look under exhibits, it's the last item you see there.
Okay, thank you very much for that information. I appreciate that. I also am interested in finding out the data of the other states that have this already. Has there been any instances where people had trouble getting back their firearms, or if maybe they were the firearms were taken away unjustified? Because we want to make sure that we're passing a bill that's not going to, be abused. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next caller.
CYRUSHOJJATY. I'm calling in opposition. I will ditto. Thank you so much. Yield.
Next caller.
This is Bruce Parks, BRUCEPARKS. Without the amendment to this bill, I stand in absolute opposition to this. With the amendment, I still think it needs some refinement. There's has to be some type of provision for recourse in the event that an individual's firearms are not immediately returned to them. If all the records are to be destroyed and the person goes to get their firearms back, and whoever they surrendered them to says, "Oh, we have no record of that," what recourse is available to that individual? Absolutely none. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Chair, there are no other callers to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you. Then with that, I will open it up to neutral testimony, beginning here in Carson City.
My name is Maximilian Lowe, MAXMILLIAN. My last name is Lowe, LOWE. I'm here to speak in in neutral because I agree that we should have things to prevent suicides and also have safe ways to take care of things. At the same time, I also agree with the concerns that everybody has. However, I think that we need to have more options in this bill for both the FFLs and owners, such as someone had mentioned about the nonprofits to have a separate safe with the FFLs, not to be put in the logbooks, because I understand people's concerns about the Second Amendment and their right to privacy and, of course, the mental health stigma. And I like the idea that see if there's more, if they can work with more with the Louisiana model, where if an FFL has gunsmithing and cleaning, and then that person needs to have their guns safe up for a certain amount of time, that should be in the bill. And that, of course, I would like to see that there is in writing, that in the law, that there is both the verbal and any different mechanisms to agree to keep the guns for that X amount of time. And also I'd like to see that if there's also the voluntary, that with the law enforcement as well as all the voluntary FFLs as well, to agree, so it could be statewide. So if someone from Las Vegas moves to, let's say, Dayton, that the county sheriff could take that, for example. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else here in Carson City? Not seeing anyone. I don't believe I see anyone else in Las Vegas. Broadcasting, will you open the lines?
Chair, the public lines are open and working. There are no additional callers to testify neutral at this time.
Okay, thank you. Then I will welcome the bill sponsors back up for any final remarks.
Thank you for the opportunity, Chair Miller, to give some final remarks. I just want to say this is a completely voluntary program. You know, it takes a lot of courage for someone to identify that they need help, and we want to make sure that there are resources available for them if they choose. The choice is theirs. It's the individual's choice to decide to store their firearms away from their home. And again, it's a choice for law enforcement agencies and FFLers to choose to participate in this program. I think, you know, seeing so many of us at the table together in support and presenting, I mean, just goes to show it's a reflection of our shared commitment to save lives. And even if one person in the state of Nevada chooses to use this program, that's one is enough for me. And I do want to thank our co-presenters, Mr. Joe Dibble, for being here and for the work he's doing even before this law has been passed to provide, you know, protections to law enforcement agencies and to FFLers. So thank you for his work. And I do want to give a big thank you to Dr. Yala True for her work that she's been doing, and they do such great work. I just want to share some of the statistics because I shared that number 10,000, but this is the work that the Armory Project has been doing. They have, and this was between 2021 and 2025, they've been able to work with 30 partners. They've trained 90 plus staff. They've distributed, and this goes to Assemblymember LaRue Hatch's question on how do we get the word out. You know, I'm hoping we can model this here in Nevada because what they've been able to do is distribute 10,000 plus pieces of material. They've helped 80 plus individuals, and they've stored 850 plus firearms. Those numbers are huge. And so thank you, Dr. True, for being here on your vacation with us to help make a difference in our state of Nevada. Thank you. And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Mr. O'Neill.
Thank you, Assemblymember Howdiggy. And I'll try to make it quick. I just want to address a couple statements that were brought up. We have been working with the NRA. I appreciate all the various partners that have come forward. As you can tell from, if you look at that original 451 to where it is today, it's a night and day issue. There is a preamble actually in here that we talk about suicide. So it stresses how this bill is suicide. It's strictly a voluntary on both sides. If a person cannot retrieve, if they don't want a written agreement, there is no written agreement, an oral agreement. If for some reason the FFLer did not return the firearms that were stored, there's other recourses through civil actions that can be taken. So those issues are addressed. This law or this pending legislation is very narrowly designed to address the issues in the preamble, make it voluntary. Usually, most firearm dealers know their customers. I know my FFLer. I interact with them regularly, and I trust them wholeheartedly that if I decided to take use of this, I would go with a written agreement, or an oral agreement, because their word is their bond. So it's addressed as into law enforcement taking the weapon against your will. There's nothing in here that allows that. We've got other laws, protections for both mechanisms to address that and for our civil protections. This proposed legislation, I believe, is very respecting to what I have fought for years, our Second Amendment right on firearms, and I will continue to support that Second Amendment right. What I will not and want to do is I want to also address our mental health issues, and I feel this is where this bill is in mental health. And with that, I will just say thank you all very much for your time. Thank you for putting up with me today, and I truly do appreciate your consideration on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And with that, I will go ahead and close the hearing on Assembly Bill 451. Next item on our agenda today is public comment. So again, just a reminder, public comment is for anything that's under the purview of our committee except for bills that were heard that day. So with that, I'll go ahead and open it up to public comment for anyone here in Carson City wishing to make public comment. Not seeing anyone? I don't see anyone in Las Vegas. Broadcasting, will you open the lines?
If you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now. Chair, there are no callers wishing to provide public comment at this time.
Thank you. That I will go ahead and close public comment. And we will go ahead and adjourn. Thank you, members. I know we had a hefty work session today. We will, as the next 2 days roll through. So be looking for your emails as we start, continue through this process. With that, we will go ahead and adjourn, and I will see you all back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Okay, I guess so. 9 a.m. See y'all tomorrow morning. You're welcome.